give you an update on an earlier story that we talked about in prior weeks. And occasionally the update is good. You'll recall almost 2 months ago that we talked about that teenager, Erik Cantu, who was unjustifiably shot by police officer James Brennand in a McDonald's parking lot while holding nothing more menacing in his hands than a hamburger. You remember that story? Cantu has spent the past several weeks in hospital recovering and reportedly still has a long way to go to a full recovery, but was able to go home for the holidays. Brennand, meanwhile, was summarily fired, as he should be, but I want to talk a little bit about cops like Brennand for a minute, and don't get me wrong, the thrust of the story is, of course, that it's an excellent thing that Erik Cantu is going to not only survive, but recover from this event. We thank God for that and wish him all the speed toward health he can have. But let's talk about the uncomfortable part again, folks, because that's what I like to do. I like to get just a little bit under the skin, just enough to make you squirm a little, because that's where the beginning of critical thinking sometimes lies, especially concerning issues for which we all have priors and opinions. Now, as you know well, my position on this program and in my life has always been one of extreme support for our law enforcement officers. I shouldn't even have to say it again. I back the blue through and through, and time after time over the years when footage of police officers doing their sometimes unfortunate duty include necessary violence, I have been the first to defend them. They do a job that most of us can only begin to imagine and which isn't truly done justice in our television shows and movies and books. And what's more, most of them do it well, very well actually, most of the time. But every once in a while, something goes a little off the rails, or a lot off the rails in the case of former Officer James Brennand. And when it does, it behooves people like me and thee to be honest in our assessment, not only because it's the right thing to do, although it is the right thing to do, but also because we must hold ourselves to a high standard of honesty in these matters in order that we should retain the level of credulity and credibility which we find so lacking in the mainstream media about literally pretty much anything. Police work is critical work, which means that police training must be critical training. In some places in this country, we don't do that enough, clearly. Also, there are shitheads in the mix with great men and women who serve to protect us, just like there are bad plumbers and bad musicians. There's bad cops, and the difference, of course, is that we give cops a gun and the potential to consequence-free right to end a life under the right circumstances. Now, if you see a flute player coming at you with a gun, well, that sucker is just crazy, and you better run. And to the liberals out there who would love to see this as a point of hypocrisy on the right, I merely have this to say. Just because I don't think gun control or ending the police are the answers to a problem like this one doesn't mean I don't recognize the problem. I could eat a hand grenade to cure an ulcer, and it would cure the ulcer, but I prefer to try a few less messy solutions first.